And
As long
Senator
as you
Hall,
agree that
just
if
so you know, Senator Hall, just so you know, the chat group that we represent probably, well, not probably, is 12,000 or more strong, just the Texas chat group. But when you take a look at from on a national basis, we're over 300,000 strong. So there's a lot of interest, not only in Texas, there's a lot of interest nationally.
Okay, yeah, I know this. I've followed some of it. I know there's a lot of interest out there.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to just clarify that and just let you know that it's just not me and Jeff out there, just on a back
Right.
and forth.
Oh, no. No, I'm very much aware. I was asked to go to Arizona and help with theirs. The timing was such I couldn't do it. No, I'm well aware that there's a lot of interest in that out
Yeah.
there.
So Senator Hall, you and I had spoke back in probably November. It was probably around November that you and I had a conversation. And I remember you saying that the election integrity or elections need to be completely revamped. And so now we see, there's a lot of issues, and there's the results. Some of the results have come out from Arizona. So it gives us kind of an idea of what to look for. And so you've created this bill based upon, did people contact you, or what prompted you to create this bill?
Well, it came from, we had a number of issues. This was not the only elections bill. We had multiple election bills. And this was just one that we decided to address separately, not knowing what was going to happen in the others, around what we thought was a reasonable way to go about doing an audit. And so there was no one else that had one like this. Senator Bittencourt, of course, has one that got more legs than ours did, but it just seemed like that this would be a practical way to approach it and put some direction to it. But the conversation I had with you before about elections, I think an audit will tell us a lot about what would happen, and having audits available, which we do have from a number of directions. We got risk limiting audits. I believe it got included in there. But I was talking about, we have our election process in general has a lot of things that are lacking in it. One of which is we have 254 counties in Texas, and we have 254 election processes in Texas. We even have processes within counties that vary from area to area within the counties, and lots of other little things that lead to an opportunity for not just fraud, but just error. And to me, it really doesn't matter whether it's fraud or error, because the end result is that the election is not what the people intended for it to be. And so we need to make some changes to that. And the election bill that got passed has a number of those changes in it, not all of them, but a good number of them that provides accountability and transparency like we've never seen before for Texas. And I think that's going to go a long way to reducing the opportunities for fraud and reducing the opportunities for mistakes that don't get caught in time. Probably we make mistakes, but we find them too late. We found that in Hill County. We found that out in Midland, and many other places where things they were not necessarily ever identified as outright fraud, but people just not doing their job right. But it got caught too late. And so that was what I was talking about. And we did get those, a good many of those in the bills that got passed. Now, if you want to talk about those, I can talk about more of them.
No, that's okay. So my next comment is, and I'd like for people to get to know you as a senator. How do you make a decision on the type of bills that you support or write? I know you have a list of, I don't know what to call them. You have a list that you go through to. So I'd like for you to do that, if you would.
We have a process that I set up when I first got to Austin after first being elected, that said, this is how we're going to evaluate bills. And one of the very first question we ask is this constitutional? And when I say constitutional, is this within the U.S. Constitution, and is it within the Texas Constitution? But because the Texas Constitution is so much thicker, broader, and more encompassing than the U.S. Constitution, the second question we ask, is this a core function of government? Is this something government it should even be doing? In Texas, we've got a lot of stuff that we do that's we've been doing for years that have gotten into the way of doing business in Texas that I don't consider to be necessarily within the scope of what government ought to be doing. And then we ask the other questions: is this increase liberties? Does this raise property tax, raise taxes, lower taxes? I've got a card. I think you may have seen it. If I got one here. But anyway, it has to do with all around what is the purpose of government. And the last question we ask, if it passes everything else, is this the right thing for moral people to be even doing? And if it does, then we look at most likely going to be able to support that. Two things that you don't find on the list is who was the author of the bill, and are they a Republican or a Democrat? I don't care. The bill stands on its own, on its merits of what's on the, as the attorneys like to use, on the four corners of the paper it's written on. And so that now I have to say, after having been there for a while, there are some people that sponsor bills that I will tell you we take a little harder look at, because they become masters of obfuscation and have a great ability to hide things and word things in a bill that you later find was, whoa, that's not how I interpreted it to be, when we talk about legislative intent. So that will say that there are times that we will look closer at a bill depending on who wrote it in there. So that's kind of how we go through the process.
Very good. Thank you. So Janine, do you want to begin with your questions?
Sure. So Senator, so recently you filed, it was, oh my goodness now, because I know it changed. So it's changed to SB 20.
Yes.
And I believe it was SB 88, right? That is so
Right.
From a language perspective, were there any changes from a language that's in the bill from 88 to 20 that changed?
No, I don't think we did change anything. No, we just refiled the bill, and if there's a fourth special session, we'll probably refile it again.
Well, and so I guess it depends on if Abbott's agenda items get passed in this next session, whether or not we'll have another one. But okay, so I just wanted to make sure, because I read SB 88, but I didn't print it out. But I did print out SB 20. And so I just wanted to make sure that as I'm looking at SB 20, that there wasn't any material changes that were made to this bill versus the other one. And so if you don't mind, and these may be questions that maybe, Amy might be able to shed a little bit of light. As I think about, the first section, part A in the bill, it talks about the Secretary of State and the Attorney General. Do you mind sharing the responsibilities of a forensic audit? Do you mind sharing your thoughts around involving the Secretary of State along with the Attorney General? It just feels like the Secretary of State would be the fox in the hen house, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Well, I know, yes. Primarily is because Secretary of State is responsible for elections, the Attorney General is not. And I think just having their cooperation as a part of it is, I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about the Secretary of State and their past actions. I think there's, because of the bright lights that's been shined on what they've been doing in the past, that it's not necessarily going to go forward the way it has been. in there, but it just, if we're going to get into doing something with the elections, that office needs to be involved in it so that they take ownership of whatever comes out of the audit. And the Attorney General's oversight is really the independent one.
The independent part of this. Well, and I think you hit it on the head. I think that there's a lot of distrust right now coming out of the Secretary of State's office. Now, whether it's our Texas state, Secretary of State, but just secretaries of state in general, because when you look at bills that were filed to change our election law, and thank God for Attorney General Ken Paxton, who was able to defend, the election laws prior to the November 3rd election. We might have been in a situation that Georgia was in, that Pennsylvania was in, that Wisconsin was in, that, these laws went and got changed. Well, maybe not changed, added, adjusted, amended, whatever you want to call it, right? And created a whole different outcome in their elections. And so if there's any opportunity there to think through who might be conducting that, recognize that there's a lot of questions about, can we trust the Secretary of State?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And, that's one of the things that comes up with every bill that we have in questioning, is this something we'd want to do if there was somebody different holding the office, whether it's agriculture, Attorney General, governor, or whatever it is, as we talk about what we're doing with the government with authority, recognizing we're always going to have a human personality involved in it. And
Right.
so trying to write it around the subject matter, recognizing that we got to be careful that we're not always going to have a Republican in charge of everything. Would we want this law to exist? And so quite often bills don't get passed just because we would not want to give that power or authority to someone. And it's always a question of that. But our answer here is that's the proper office. And with the right people in there, you will certainly get the right answer. We'd have the same problem if we had a different Attorney General. Do we want, and believe me, there are states out there that I would not want to have the Attorney General in charge of anything. And so we you can't really write bills around personalities that currently exist. And sometimes things get written in ways because we're concerned that who might take advantage of that.
Right. And so I appreciate you saying that, because I think that makes all the more reason of not only this bill, but the fact that we protect our elections. That makes it so much more important, because if nefarious characters can get involved in the election process and they can somehow manipulate the outcome of an election, then we certainly could lose our ability to get the representation that we, as citizens need to have in our state legislature. So I appreciate you saying that we've got to make sure that we can vote for the right people, and because it could be a Democrat Attorney General, but I don't see how we conservative people would allow a Democrat Attorney General. But we're going to keep pushing for, the Republican support. Jeff, do you have any?
And the other thing is, by having two as separate offices as what we have here, it's kind of a tool that minimizes if we end up with a bad actor in one of the two. We've got
Right.
the other one at least to balance it out, rather than trying to put it all in one office.
Correct. Jeff, anything with respect to from you regarding, Secretary of State or Attorney General, coordinated effort? I'm just glad we have a coordinated effort versus just only the Secretary of State. So I appreciate you bringing in the Attorney General in that. But Jeff, go ahead.
Senator Hall, pleasure to meet you, sir. I apologize for my lack of, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
here you just.
Okay. I apologize for my lack of video. I'm still in the woods out here sometimes, but I think the concern isn't so much about, who the Secretary of State would be next year or in 10 years. It's more about who they are today and who who would be overseeing a look back at what happened in November of 2020. And we know Ken Paxton, he's fought real hard. There's just a lot of scared people at the current acting Secretary of State. And that's where this question arises from. I understand, you know, when you're writing a bill, you're writing it as much as for today as you are 10 years from today. And because you don't know what 10 years is going to be like. So you kind of have to look ahead and kind of hopefully smooth out the rough patches as best you can. One of my concerns or questions, not so much of a concern, but the statement of shall begin no later than November the 1st, 2020, down on line 17. If we take into account the 2/3 majority, it can start immediately, or a 50% or more, it starts in a 91-day period. Considering this session isn't going to begin until virtually toward the end of this month and goes for 30 days, if it gets passed, well, we're into January theoretically assuming we don't get a 2/3 majority, which seems kind of a shot in the dark. What can that language be adjusted to consider the 90-day period? I suppose that's my question.
Well, and I guess I would add to that, Jeff, is what are the odds of us getting a 2/3 majority of the House and of the Senate in order to pass this immediately?
Zero.
Yeah, exactly.
Zero.
So then we would have to rely on the second here where it says if the act does not receive the vote for immediate effect, then it will go into effect on the 91st day after the last day of the legislation, which I think what Jeff's alluding to, recognizing that the bill states that this audit would commence no later than November 1st, 21. So when you look at the timeline is this session starts 9/20/21. 30 days later is October 19th. So if theoretically, if the bill gets passed and Governor Abbott signs it, then 91 days later falls somewhere well into January of 2022. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's time is something we have to live with, and it's moving on. We didn't get it done last time, and unless the governor puts it on the call, we're not going to get it done this time either.
So that was going to be the next question I was going to ask is, what chances of the governor do we have of the governor adding this to the agenda? And then where does it go from there? I mean, does it need to have that? Can Dan Patrick put it out to committee and then in committee we can vote it out? Or Dan Patrick won't put it out there because Abbott hasn't put it on his agenda? Because that's how Phelan is, and that's why HB 26 didn't go anywhere, because Phelan wouldn't put it on the committee.
That is most likely what will happen. The governor, lieutenant governor, that just does not necessarily try to do things to bring any discourse between he and the governor unnecessarily. It happens just out of the natural events enough. And so I have not seen, I don't think there's much chance that Patrick would put this for a committee hearing. Except that if he got word from the governor that he might add it to it, he might do that. But if he doesn't put it on there, I don't think the chances of even getting a committee hearing on it are about the same as it passing. That's just probably not going to happen. Particularly with this session coming up is primarily around redistricting, and so while this could be, if enough people call the governor's office or people with the right relationship with him get to him, convince him, or if DeSantis was to do this, he might do it.
So maybe we should petition DeSantis? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that DeSantis doing things seems to fit very well with legitimate conservatives. And quite often, once DeSantis has done something, Texas does 75% of whatever Florida did.
Yeah.
I've noticed that too.
So Aubrey has her hand up. Aubrey, would you like to ask a question? Thanks for joining. I can't hear you. She's trying. Okay, I can't hear you. But anyways, go ahead, Janine. I'm sorry.
So a couple days ago in the Houston Chronicle, Dan Patrick said that he is in full support of a forensic audit of the 2020 election. He said the only thing is we got to get Abbott to put it on the agenda.
Right. Yep. I mean, that's
So I feel like Patrick was throwing Abbott under the bus.
well, it's not the first time, and probably won't be the last time. But he's also very measured in what he does. I mean, you could interpret that as throwing him under the bus. The otherwise is saying, you know, hey, I'll be glad to give you my position on it, but my position is not what's keeping this from happening. And so he always has to walk the fine line between making sure people understand what he supports and what he doesn't support, so he doesn't get caught up in the whirlwind when it's not happening, and it's not because he can't do something about it.
But so I guess my point is, if Patrick was willing to go on a limb to the Houston Chronicle and say he supports it, then maybe he might send it to committee hearing.
Yeah, I mean, he could. I mean, believe me, I gave up on trying to read any of our other leaders. I have a hard enough time reading my own mind. Trying to read theirs is impossible. And so I just, unless it's something I really need to do to speculate on, they're either going to do it or they're not going to do it. And so what we do is we get ready ourselves as ready as we can. So if sometime, and it has happened, it happened with constitutional carry, that overnight everything changed. Everything changed. I would have said early on in the session that constitutional carry did not have a snowball's chance of passing because of what people had said about it before going into the session, and things changed. And the next thing you know, we have a whole new committee, we have a whole new bill. And in less time than most any other bill I'd seen pass, got through a committee hearing, got to the floor, got passed, and sent to the House, back to the House. So things have a way of changing down there. And so me to say it doesn't have a chance, that's based on what I see right now. And we had several bills last time that would on another subject that's extremely important for the state, and that's on the resiliency of our electrical grid system. We did nothing during the regular session to improve the reliability and resiliency of it.
I know.
And so there were several of us that were very anxious to get a bill that was actually going to have substantial things done so that we are assured that we have the capacity to handle Texas's growth and the weather we face. And I would have thought for sure that would have been put on the call, and it wasn't. And now I'm think it won't be on there at all. And I have grave concerns about us making it through this next winter and next summer. I know somehow God blessed us with an ungodly, unusually cool summer. I mean, August has been something like I've never seen before, and I think that's the only thing that saved us. But I would have thought for sure that would be put on there. So we were ready for it, but it didn't happen. And we're ready for this. But unless there are the right donors or the right number of people to convince the governor that this is something that ought to be done, he's not going to add it. He's not going to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is targeting the right donors. Thank you for saying that. So Aubrey, are you back? Were you able to join us? No? Okay. So, so I think, what you're saying is that we don't, for this particular bill, it's not going to be in the special session unless governor calls it.
Oh, yeah, no, there's nothing going to be in the special session unless the governor puts it on there. The only thing right now is we know for sure is redistricting. I suspect that the bills he had before that didn't get passed will be put back on again. I mean, there are a lot of people have been pushing really hard to get the gender modification bills
That's right.
bill back on there.
Yeah.
Huge bill. The UIL bill to protect women's sports in this insane world that we're now living in. I would say that those will probably that at least the UIL bill will probably be back on there. I don't know why we haven't been able to convince him that we need to have the gender modification bill on there. And frankly, one that I've been pushing real hard, but I'm not sure there's enough support for it, is a vaccine mandate bill to stop vaccine mandates. And that is being held up by my Republican colleagues, because they just don't think we should be telling businesses how to run their business. So
Yeah.
there's a big, chasm to get over between wanting something to be changed and actually being able to get there and get it done. And the special sessions it's not like we can work on anything. We can only work on what the governor puts on the call.
Right.
I think it's interesting, Senator Hall, we don't want to tell business how to run their business, but business can tell people that they can mandate something to their employees.
Believe me, I've had that conversation and with several people, and it's a very frustrating one, because we just passed a whole passel of bills. We tell businesses what to do all the time. We tell them what time they can open, what time they can close, what they can sell, what they can't sell. We tell people how they can treat people depending on what their gender is. We tell businesses how they treat people based on the color of their skin. We tell them what size toilet seats they have to have in their bathrooms. So we tell businesses what to do. Believe me, I am well aware that we tell businesses a lot and control them a lot. And it's very frustrating to me when these so-called defenders of liberty throw that up as we don't tell businesses what to do. That's a superfluous statement to me.
Right. It's just a catch-all, and they use it when it's necessary, and that's it.
Now we do have one for the vaccine, though, we've adopted from the enemy's side, and that is my body, my choice.
Well, yeah, but now it doesn't apply to us.
Right. So
it's my body, my choice with a big, huge asterisk.
You're right. So, okay, what else can I answer for you guys?
So is Aubrey on?
I
thought
she's on, but she's on, but she's unable to speak, I think. Yeah. So my next question is, Senator Hall, Convention of States is all about teaching self-governance. So these frustrations that we're experiencing, what is it, in your opinion, that the people could do that they're not doing?
Thank you.
They could participate more. Government is run by those who show up. And I'll tell you, during the regular session, we were inundated with the left in every hearing we had. I would say the right was outnumbered 20-1. The right stayed home because they weren't going to have a COVID test and didn't want to wear a mask. Now, I understand it, and that's fine, because I am not an advocate of either one of those. But they let that stand between them and going in there and fighting for liberty. So I can't imagine what our founding fathers would have done when they said, oh, this winter is just too cold for me. I just can't go out in the snow and fight for our liberty here. Or if the men in Incheon said the same thing. It bothered me a great deal that our side failed to show up during the session when we needed them. And the left was there and beat us up one side down and down the other. And so being active, having more events, having more outreach programs. I don't like the word particularly, but getting in people involved. So we get past, when we arrive on election day, the thousands of phone calls that are made to ask someone, who should I vote for? They should know before that. And we aren't doing a good enough job. I mean, our government is not us in Austin or Washington or in the county that does it. Our government is of the people, by the people, and the people have really, and I was recognized, y'all, at least out doing something, but the overall majority of the people have failed us. Our pastors have failed us. Our pastors started failing us in 1963 when we got prayer out of school and took Bibles out. And they sat there and didn't say a thing. And now we're running up in this insane things of allowing men into women's bathrooms, lockers, and shower rooms, ruining girls' sports. And not a word is being said in the pulpit about biblical principles. I'm not talking about voting Republican or Democrat. I'm talking about biblical principles that ought to be spoken, that we have pastors that are afraid to because they're afraid they'll offend somebody and they'll lose noses and nickels.
Thank you.
We don't have enough people holding meetings. Now I will say it's encouraging because I have seen more of them with the Black community and Hispanics waking up that this woke Democrat Party is not the Democrat Party they thought it was, and I think we have a great opportunity that we're going to lose if we don't start recruiting people and get them involved, making them aware. Having events where we talk about the principles of liberty, have more speakers who talk about the Federalist Papers, who talk about all of the great things that John Adams had to say, and Thomas Jefferson's writings and his words, and the other founding documents that shape what we are, and get people back, instill the fact that government is there to protect individual liberties, not to be providing free stuff. And so it's going to take our general population getting more involved in it and participating, spending their time walking. We had, and I wish I had the photo here I could show you. There are some people that do show up at the Capitol. There's people who show up and they'll go to offices and talk. And we had one young man that came, yeah, but it needs to be a big crowd. But we had one young man who came to our office, and I would run into him in the hallway throughout the session at 7 o'clock in the morning when I would come in, and he would be there, stop by the office late at night. And he had a little bill that was going to fix a problem he had encountered. He had a disability, and his disability was that he could not attend school. So he had to do school at home. And in that, they assigned somebody to work with the student at home to turn in their homework, turn their papers in, and so on. He was not doing it on a computer. It was, doing his work. And his senior year, when he got his notice that he had failed because he didn't turn in any work, it about blew him away because he had a scholarship to college. He thought he was all set and ready to go. And it turned out that they just kind of walked out on him. And then he had no recourse. So he had a little bill to fix that so that didn't happen to anybody in the future. And so he came and worked that bill. His name was Edgar Pacheco. And when we passed the bill, Edward was there in the Capitol like he had been every other day. And I pointed him out to the members. He was sitting in the balcony. And the thing that was noticeable about Edward was he had someone with him to push his wheelchair, because Edgar had no arms and had no legs, born with no arms and no legs. Smart as a whip, a great personality, a very upbeat person. And he was there walking, no, use the term, up and down the hallways to every office in there, supporting his bill. And I've shown that at many a town hall. And then I said, ask the group out there, what's your excuse for not showing up? Look at Edgar. No arms and no legs. Had to have someone get him there, get him home. And he was there working on it and got his bill passed. And we named it the Edgar Pacheco bill. And so I don't think anybody has any excuse for not being as active as some of y'all are. And I'm saying this, I'm not talking about you guys that are down there, that I see you there regularly and doing stuff. I'm talking about the rest of the people that aren't getting involved. The rest of the people that are just saying, oh, I'm gonna leave it up to somebody else. The rest of the people that don't pay any attention to what candidates say when they're running, and then don't even pay any attention to them, what they do when they get down to Austin or to Washington or into their county seat, wherever it happens to be. And then 2 years later, turn around and ask the same question again of their friend that does pay attention, who should I vote for? I don't know. I saw this one guy, he has nice curly hair and a nice smile. So I guess I'm going to vote. His name was Fred Smith. Yeah, I'm going to vote for Fred Smith. I like the way he combed his hair. I mean, I have heard that answer given for why somebody voted for something. I like the dog, or I like the way they dressed, or they drive a car like I do. That's hardly a good reason to vote for somebody, but that's what we hear too much of.
Yeah, the Convention of States has a capital brigade, and
I know you do. I see you all the time.
Yeah, so
And that's good.
the last time I was in your office, and I signed the book, I think it was like 3 days since somebody else had signed the book. So people don't come enough, and but we're trying. So and a lot of times when I send out emails saying come to the Capitol or we're going to have a surge day, I get emails saying, can't you give us enough notice? People don't understand that there's only 24, 72 hours till that we get notice that a bill is going to be heard. So hey, I have Aubrey on my phone, so I'm going to have Aubrey ask her question.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much. I apologize. I can't get Zoom to do anything I wanted to do. Can you hear me, Mr. Hall?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I've got to ask, I really have to ask why we're still continuing to ask the legislature to pass laws when both Ken Paxton and Dan Patrick, they both hold inherent subpoena and investigatory powers over Texas election issues. I don't understand why a legislation is needed when they can initiate an investigation based off of all the available information. I mean, we've got blatant violations of Texas election code documented, from unlawful registrations to the numbering of ballots in my county, for example, not being done according to Texas law, making for an impossible forensic audit if we're ever granted one. I'm wondering why we're wasting any time with bills that are discussing what are called RLAs, risk limiting audits, which are not real audits, will not get to the bottom of any potential fraud, are not what the people are asking for. And they've given full authority of these RLAs over to the Secretary of State's office, who it's a man named Keith Ingram. I'm personally tired of people saying we don't have a Secretary of State, because though that's technically true, it's a man named Keith Ingram, who is effectively our Secretary of State. He has done nothing about the blatant violations that we've sent to him. I don't want him involved in any forensic audit. We don't need the legislature to pass. We don't need to be on any certain timeline. What we need to do is have our representatives demand that Ken Paxton and Dan Patrick look into the blatant and egregious and anomalous issues that we've presented to them already. If they don't do that, they are violating their oaths and they need to step down. What do you think about that, sir?
Well, the thing about it is, by passing these laws that we're trying to pass here, we kind of bypass individuals, because you're talking about something that has to do with two individuals, and the legislature really has no power over the Attorney General. He's a totally independently elected official, and the Senate really has no power over the lieutenant governor. He is independently elected by the people. It's the people that have the power over them. And so we could talk about it, but that's about all it could be done. is better off to try to get a bill passed that gets something done.
Well, I think talking about it would get a lot more done because this is actually his purview. This is actually Ken Paxton's purview. He has to look into this stuff. You shouldn't have to write a bill to get him to do his job. He should already be looking into the issues that we've put him on notice for. We sent a lot of stuff to the Secretary of State. We stopped sending it to Keith Ingram because he is gatekeeping and he is not sending it to Paxton. So we've been sending it directly to Paxton. I like Paxton, but why is he not initiating an investigation? Is it a matter of funding? Because he needs to talk to us about that. I want the machines abolished. I want the machine companies to come and pick up their machines. I want a complete refund to every single county who votes to abolish their machine. And I want that money to be the down payment for our forensic audits. I don't see why I have to think of these things when Ken Paxton has sworn an oath to protect the Constitution, and we're putting him on notice of direct violations of Texas election law, and he's sitting on his hands and asking you to do something about it. That's his job, and I think if you let him know that we all know that that's his job to do, the pressure will be taken off of you a little bit. It's not the legislature's job to do Ken Paxton's to initiate investigations into Texas election issues. That's Ken Paxton's job.
And he is. I mean, we had multiple hearings in which there were representatives from the Attorney General's office there talking about the number of cases that they've got and that they are in the process of working on. There are a ton of cases that there's not sufficient evidence to be able to do anything with it. That's one of the reasons that we passed the bill we did to put us in a better position to be able to gather the information that's needed to be able to prosecute somebody for election fraud. Currently, we don't have that now, and so that's one of the steps we had to take or took to make that happen.
So we do have evidence of violations of Texas election law. We do. I've sent it to Ken Paxton. I've sent it to the Secretary of State. I now have 6 sworn affidavits related to violations of Texas election code. We do have the evidence. They're doing nothing about it. The Secretary of State and Attorney General Paxton have not reached back out to me or my fellow poll watchers who have reached out to them with their concerns. They are not reaching back out to us. Know it, I can prove it. And these RLA bills are not what we need. They are not what the people are asking for, and they are not what we need. And the Secretary of State, who's already doing nothing about the issues, sure does not need to have full authority over how these audits are conducted in our state. I have it on good intelligence that the Secretary of State authorized my county to violate Texas election code law. And I'm waiting for that to be confirmed by my elections administrator. Do you have an opinion on if I can confirm that the Secretary of State's office authorized the violation of Texas election code? Will you potentially listen to some of the grassroots groups around here who are trying to reach out to and tell you guys, hey, these bills are not going to cut it, and AG Paxton is sitting on evidence and doing nothing about it?
I mean, if you bring something now, there's a difference between having an affidavit from somebody and having evidence. I'm not an attorney, but I've gone through these conversations. If we have a lot of people that said, I saw this, I saw that, but there is no evidence that other than that one person seeing something or a couple of people seeing something. That's one of the problems we have had is that it's very difficult to get any evidence of it. And that's why we have some of the parts we have in the election bill, SB1 that just got passed, is going to put us in a better position to actually be able to have evidence next time.
Affidavits are evidence, and all I need are 2 sworn affidavits for Attorney General Paxton to initiate an investigation. That's per Texas election law as well. And he has not reached back out to me. I've got myself, my fellow poll watcher, and 4 others who have sworn affidavits of violations of Texas election law. Nobody cares.
So or Senator Hall, is there a way of getting an appointment with Ken Paxton? Is that difficult? Or Aubrey, have you tried to get an appointment with him, or You're just sending emails and letters?
I'm not the only one who's tried. Seth Ketchel as well has information that needs to be examined. His is less factual than mine. Like his is more based on trends.
Statistics, yeah.
Right, they show anomalies and trends. Mine, what I have, my affidavits are observations of direct violation of Texas Election Code that is introducing undue influence into our elections. That is against Article 6, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, and I can name about 12 other Texas election codes that we can swear are being violated. And nobody can prove that they're not. We can prove that they are.
So Aubrey, is there, would you want to sit down and share those affidavits with Senator?
Sure.
Hall?
I mean, the thing is,
did you bring that information to our office during the session and I just missed it, or?
Say that one more time. Senator Hall, say
Said,
that.
Is this something that you brought to our office and we didn't act on it? Or when was it you came to our office with this information?
I don't think she brought it to your office.
Okay.
I
See,
guess,
I can't do anything about something I don't know about.
right.
And as I was saying earlier, this past session, we had almost nobody coming to our office.
Hold tight, Aubrey. Go ahead, Senator Hall.
I was saying just a few minutes ago, this past session, we had very few people, and I'm the only office up there that actually had an open door policy that did not require vaccines, a mask, or an appointment. Just come, open the door, and walk in. And we still had very few people showed up, and I don't recall getting or seeing any of this information. And I really can't do anything about something I don't know about.
Right. So
but the point is not that Senator Hall needs to do something. Ken Paxton's job is to address the issues that are sent to him.
right.
We have sent them to him. He is not doing his job. The only thing that we need our representatives to do is to tell the truth. Ken Paxton is not doing his job. I am not asking Bob Hall to initiate an investigation into Tarrant County elections. I'm asking Ken Paxton to initiate the investigation into Tarrant County elections because that is his job.
Right, but maybe Senator Hall can facilitate. That's what we're saying here, Aubrey.
Well, I need Senator Hall to understand what's happening, because I don't think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what's going on. SB 1 is not an election integrity bill. It's not. I've read it. It's not. I am election integrity focused. I am a trained poll watcher. I know what to watch for. I know who to ask for and when to ask for it. And I documented, along with my fellow trained poll watchers, violations of Texas election code. And nobody gives a damn. So if Bob Hall gives a damn, I would very much like to meet with you and go over the things that we've seen so that you know what to tell Ken Paxton he's not doing. I'd love to do that.
Okay, what offices down there have you shared your knowledge with about what's going on and needs to be done? What senator and representative offices?
Yeah, I sent it to up the proper chain of command is what I've done is I've learned the proper chain of command when I experience an issue. So what I did is I followed the proper chain of command per Texas election procedure.
Okay, so what would that be?
And I sent it to the Secretary of State and I sent it to my local elections office. So they know this. Hyder Garcia called me himself. He knows how severe the issues are here. He's trying to cover them up. He worked for Smartmatic in Venezuela for 12 years. I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's funny. There is nothing that I know about my county that my representatives don't also know. I don't think
What county are you in? Where are you, Aubrey?
I have the evidence.
I'm not hearing you.
Erica, you're on mute.
Yeah, I think she's talking to her on the phone.
Bob, your next meeting's here shortly.
Okay.
Jeff, why don't you get what you wanted in? Can
Yeah,
you
Mr. Hall, I think just to kind of fall off of Aubrey's position there, you know, I'm one of those people who has never gotten involved in Texas politics, even though I'm a native Texan and have been voting here for 40 plus years. But something snapped after the November 2020 election in me that made me decide that I have to get involved in some way, somehow, some shape, some form. And I think the frustrations that all of us, not just on this call, but I'm talking about all of us across the state, are dealing with right now is there is little to zero trust in our elections going forward right now. There has been so many problems, county by county, that SB1 is not going to take care of. It doesn't fix what happened, and that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants to fix what happened. And it's not about Donald Trump. It's not about any of that. It's about getting to the bottom of a true, free, and fair election that most of us truly feel like we missed last year. And so that's the reason for my involvement. You haven't seen me at the state capitol yet, and that's not to say that you won't, but I'm involved. My wife can attest to my involvement, and I spent a lot of time at this, and I'm going to be spending a lot more time at it. But we need the legislators to understand that the public is not satisfied with what happened in 2020, not because Trump didn't win, he did win. But there was more going on in this state than Donald Trump. And that's what we want to get to the bottom of. And we want to know what happened, and we want to correct it so that it never happens again, because that's not fair to us as Texans.
Well, and to echo what Jeff is saying, Senator, a lot of us feel violated. I mean, we feel like I trusted the system. I trusted the system. And I believed that the system was working for me. And I, like Jeff, I was active, but not as active as I am today. And I will tell you, I did go down to testify at Senate hearing. I did go wait 12 hours, not to even be acknowledged, because we had to let 2 or 3 buses of people from Houston go before everybody else because they had a bus to catch. And that did not sit well with me, because I sat there just as long as everybody else. But those people, because they had their senators come in and say, oh, we need to let our people go first. Well, that was wrong, in my opinion. But I think, getting back to Aubrey's point and getting back to Jeff's point, we don't feel heard. We don't feel like anyone in Austin, and when I say anyone, I thank you for listening to us, but we don't feel like anyone in Austin, starting from our governor down to our local representatives, are listening to what we are saying. We are saying that we have been violated. We are saying that this election was not fair, was not equal. We are saying that we've got to look at this. And if our representation, who is up in Austin, can't listen to us, doesn't listen to us, won't listen to us, then where else do we turn? Who else do we go to? We can't vote people out because we've got an election system in process or in play that we don't trust is going to allow us to put who we feel like is going to represent us in Austin. Austin is letting us down. And yes, I don't disagree with you. We've had a level of apathy amongst our voting adults. And I think it's because we trusted the system. We trusted the people that we thought we were putting in there to have our best interest at heart. And at the end of the day, what I am finding is that I was wrong in trusting the system and trusting the people. But now, I'm finding even more that the system that I thought was in play for us to use as a process to get to the bottom of things that we feel are violating our rights and our liberties, that's not even there for us anymore. Now, we have a few people like you, which I thank, But we have to support you. We want to support you. We are willing to support you in whatever you need to be that voice. But we need that voice to be loud. We need it to be clear. We need it to be honest, because there's people out here, Senator, that want that and will support it. And we will do whatever is necessary, because we are not going to lose our rights. We are not going to allow anybody to mandate. We're not going to allow anybody to take away our children's rights. This is my children's future. And it's not just mine, it's everybody on this call. It's your grandkids, it's their kids. And this is our future. And if we can't rely on the people that are in Austin to help us, then who do we rely on?
No,
Erica,
well, it is, I mean, it is the people in Austin where the changes need to be made. And I will respectfully disagree that we did not make any improvements with SB 1. There are some things in there that probably, there is no doubt in my mind that we have a more secure election process in there. And I don't have enough time. I'd be glad to give you a presentation on what's really in there that I don't think a lot of people understand. But there's the other side of it is that, you know, we can't even muster enough people to have poll watchers, yet we have at the locations where we really need them, much less everywhere. And when we do, not many of them take the time to learn what a poll watcher is supposed to do and how they're supposed to go about doing it. And we do have a lot in the bill that aids in that happening. We also have a lot in there that's going to be able to let us collect evidence. And again, with all due respect, someone's statement about what they saw is a part of what can be used, but to get something all the way through court takes evidence that the way that the previous system is set up, it's almost impossible to get that evidence to get through. And then there's also a lot of concerns out there that people have that they've heard that happened in other states that are not applicable to Texas. Just one example is I've get plenty of phone calls about us getting rid of all that Dominion voting equipment. Well, Texas doesn't have any Dominion voting equipment. They were not certified in Texas, so we don't have any, haven't had any. Yet there are a lot of people that are upset over, you know, thinking that we do have it. But we've made some changes that not just stop some of the illegal vote harvesting that going on, but setting up transparency and accountability right at the precinct level so that it makes it extremely difficult for people to manipulate the votes coming out of a precinct. Between having the write once memory cards, the zero tapes and the tally tapes that have to be run, it's going to go a long way in protecting the in-person voting. And then the steps we've taken to add to what has to happen with a mail-in ballot. Sure, there'll be some that will slip through, but those are onesie twosies kind of votes that happen here and there. The big problem that was happening in Dallas and Harris County were taking memory cards and rewriting them to actually change the outcome of the votes, which is, I think we've pretty well made that extremely difficult to do. And I'll say, I will never say we stop that or prevent this from happening, because as long as we have humans involved in it, God is right. The heart of man is basically evil, and man will find a way to work around whatever we put up there. We just have to make it more difficult. That's why we sometimes have metal doors on our homes and buildings rather than screen doors. You can get through either one. It's just harder to get through the metal door. And that's what we're trying to do is make it more difficult. And I really think we have done that. And I think that what we will see after this next election will be different. But if anybody, if you have something, I am going to have to go. I'm running out of time here.
I was just gonna
Uh,
end- I was
the,
just gonna call, but I
If
do
you have some specifics that you'd like to come to my office, I have an open door policy and we will talk to anybody on an issue. Sometimes people don't like the outcomes of it, but we will talk and listen. And if there's something we can do about it, I mean, there's a lot of things that happen we can't do anything about. And we talk about me trying to get Ken Paxton or the Attorney General to do his job. I have no authority to do that. There's no power to do that. He's independently elected just as I am. That the only power there is in the election. So, and other than that is publicity, make people aware. I would say that still we have a huge part of our population that still doesn't understand that we've had a problem with elections, and are unable to separate the problems we have with our election process and the concerns about the Trump election. There's two totally separate issues. And all of what we did is a bill that we've tried for 3 sessions now to get passed that finally did get something. So, but let me just close out with this: is if you got a specific about something you want to come talk to us about, I'll be glad to talk to you about it. And if there's something I think we can do about it, I don't hesitate to the chagrin of my staff. I take on a lot of stuff that they had rather, let somebody else solve. Like one of the questions that we seldom ask, like only out of curiosity, we ask it, where are you from? You got representative senators down there won't even let you in their door if you don't live in their district. I'm not one of those. I feel like my vote affects all of Texas, and therefore I should listen to anybody in there. So if you got something specific that you think was overlooked by this bill that we should change. Now, I got to separate the two things of what people think they saw in the last elections and what we're going to be doing going forward. And my emphasis wants to be on going forward. What do we do to make sure that we have as secure elections as we can going forward, and not spend all our time trying to look back at incidents that occur because of the people that are involved, not because of the process and the system. Because we got to get the system and the process right, and then we will work on getting the people right.
All right, well,
So-
we'll end the call. I see Amy sitting on the edge of her seat, waiting for us
Yeah.
to end the call. So I appreciate your time as always, and your patience and explaining things to us. So yeah, you just have a good rest of the day.
Okay, you too. And if you might take a look at the bill and look at those 3 things I just talked about that we put in place, where at the precinct level, they're going to have to run a zero tape right there at the precinct the morning voting starts before the doors open. And then they have to run the tally tape, entire tally tape that shows all of the votes cast right after the doors close and get signed by the judge and the alternate judge. And you have the hard copy paper ballots. And those can be audited one against the other right there at the precinct level. And then because you have that tally tape, what takes place at the county can be compared back to the precinct to make sure that nothing changed. And when it goes to the state level prints it all the way down prints it out all the way to the precinct level. That can be carried all the way back to the precinct. And so that is probably one of the biggest changes we made in there that's going to make it extremely difficult for people to manipulate votes. Now, there'll still be people that'll lie about where they live, who they are, what their eligibility is, but that's votes 1 and 2 at a time kind of thing. Dead people voting, that will happen. I think what we've got in there for verification of signatures and the whole process is going to reduce that significantly. But to me, the big thing is we pretty much put up a huge barrier for those who have been manipulating the vote to have different outcome. So thank you guys for giving me as much of your time as you have today. I know you all are busy and got lots to do, but I want to thank you, and come see us. Come with the issues and we'll talk about it. And those that we can do something about, we will. And and forgive us and have patience with us when we tell you, that's not something we can do something about, because I'll be very honest with you. I'm not going to tell you I can do something about it and just to make you feel good. There are things I can do and there are things I can't do. I don't fix
When do you get
potholes
back
and I
to
can't help
Austin?
with social security issues either. So
When do you get back to Austin?
the 20th is when this is the advertised date for starting up. I think I've got to go down next week for a redistricting to review my district. We're reviewing districts one at a time. And I just before this phone call started, I got notice from Amy that they want to talk on the first part of the week.
Are those
So-
redistricting are those open to the public?
Yes. Oh yeah. No, they're on the website. And folks, if you're not there, the website has all the hearings, all the public hearings, everything is up there. It's on there, and all of these redistricting hearings are available on the internet live,
Okay,
and you can
thank you.
participate. You
And I
can
just-
get on there and ask questions.
I just did a training last night for redistricting, and I recorded it so anybody can watch that. So thank you so much, Bob Hall,
Okay.
Senator Bob Hall.
Okay.
As always.
Thank you, guys.